What is up, guys? Gregardis is here with another video, and this time around we're going to be going right into the Arcane Mage PvP guide for 7.2. And I did say I was going to try get this video up last weekend. This weekend I was just now, but I've been kind of busy, so I didn't get time to do it. I'm so sorry. But anyway, let's get right into it. I'm going to tell you what talents to go for, what artifact traits with the new traits that have been coming out. And I'm going to be talking about matchups or setups that you can play in 3v3 arenas and 2v2 arenas. And I'm going to go over the burst sections. So I'm going to put annotations in the description below so you can skip in the video if you already feel like you know what traits you're going for, what talents you're using, and you just want to see the burst or the matchup setups, whatever. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let's get right into it. Alright guys, so first out we're gonna start with the regular talents. What to choose and why. So first tier, level 15 talents, amplification. This is the go-to talent for any PvP situation. You don't even look at Arcane Familiar and you don't even think about Words of Power. This is your go-to one, trust me. And it's because missiles is your pretty much kill potential in a lot of situations. And Shimmer is your go-to spell or talent as well on the level 30 talent tree. And that's because you need that mobility as Arcane, because if you're standing still you're gonna die. You need to be moving around a lot, especially against melee cleaves in arenas. And in BGs people mostly focus you. I at least get that feeling all the time. I get jumped by everyone. Slipstream and Mana Shield are more PvE talents, I would say. And for the tier 45, I always go in kind of slow no matter what at this point, because I don't feel like you get a lot of time to put up Rune of Power and do your burst, and if you do, you're playing on a low MMR, like really low, because once you get to a higher MMR, everyone has a different opinion on what high MMR is, but I'd say above 2k MMR you will not be able to burst with Rune of Power in arenas at least. And in BGs people just run away from your burst and you have to stand in the circle, of course, to get the damage increase. So if you're in a 1v1, sure, you can go Rune of Power for more burst, but else I myself always play Incantus Flow. And I don't feel Mirror Image is viable at all, because it doesn't do a lot of damage, in my opinion at least. Supernova, this is a talent I don't like at all. I know in my previous guide in 7.1 I think it was, I did play with this talent in 2s2 to counter some melees, to knock them up and interrupt them, or interrupt a healer's cast when they have aura mastery or things like that. I can see its potential, but I myself I don't like it at all. And Charged Up is a talent you want to pick if you're playing a really aggressive comp in 3v3 arenas or in 2s2, like Rogue Mage for example. You want to get in there, do damage instantly as hard as possible, and that's the only situation I would pick Charged Up. But most of the time at the moment I always play Resonance, because they're in 3v3 when you're bursting. When you use Arcane Barrage, you usually hit more than one target, and that damage increase is really helpful, especially against things as Demon Warlocks, where they have a lot of pets. Beast Mastery Hunters would have 2 pets running around. Even Destrolocks or Affliction Warlocks when they have their little pet next to them. So you hit an extra target, or if there's like a melee cleave that's stacking on you, like an Unholy DK and Warrior, you're gonna get a lot of damage on the DK or the Warrior if they're standing next to each other and they're focusing you with all their pets and everything. So in my opinion, go Resonance. And Chrono Shift is a talent I pick to get that movement speed increase when I use Arcane Barrage, and that's pretty much only used for me in BGs, because you can move around and kite a lot, and there's more people you need to kite in BGs usually, because more people focus you than they do in 3s or 2s. And for 2 arenas and 3v3 I always go Ring of Frost to have that extra CC in case you get kicked on polymorph, or you just getting trained by 2 melees and you need to like blink away, put a ring around you, get some breathing room. Ice Ward, I don't really rate it. It's like your DR, diminishing return if you didn't know. Like if you Frost Nova once and they get out of it and you Frost Nova again, it's not going to be a full duration Frost Nova, so it's kind of pointless to me, at least in my opinion. If you like Ice Ward, then go for it. Nether Ward, it got nerfed in 7.2, and I feel like it does no damage at all, and it's the most useless talent in the whole tree, in my opinion, probably. It does nothing. Maybe in Ultric Valley you can play it where it bounces to and hits a lot of targets at the same time, but yeah, I don't like it at all. This talent just makes me laugh, to be honest. It shouldn't even be a talent. Unstable Magic is something you can pick if you play with Rune of Power, in my opinion. Like you go uncharged up, or if you pick charged up and Unstable Magic, then you can go get those instant Arcane Blast with Presence of Mind to have a chance to do more damage, but else always go with Erosion. And as I've said in previous guides that I've done, Arcane Power is not one of my favorite things, because what if you get CC'd during your Arcane Power, or what if you get it gets purged off you? Then you have 0 damage with that then this whole talent tree is redundant if you pick this. And Temporal Flux is I've not really played a lot with it, but the thing is you can't really free cast a lot of Arcane Blasts this patch because you get so fast. So this is also actually this is probably worse than Nether Tempest, if I'm honest. Temporal Flux is the worst. Anyway, so I would always say in any situation, BGs, arenas, world PvP, anything, go Arcane Orb. That's my opinion, at least. Overpowered, I see its potential, of course, and you could play it with Rogue Mage setups to get the burst off real quick before it gets purged off you. Or you can play it when there's a team where there is no purge, like Resto Druid, Warrior, DK. None of them can purge your Arcane Power. The only way they can stop it is if they CC you, and that's with Fear or Stormbolt or Asphyxiate or anything like that. Else you mostly cast instant spells when you burst anyway. So always go Arcane Power, in my opinion. Or not Arcane Power, Arcane Orb. Such a derp. Anyway, let's move on with the Honor Talents. So here we have the Honor Talents, and usually in 2vs2 arenas or BGs, I always go Gladiator's Medallion. And I rarely pick Adaptation because I feel like since 7.2 came out, you can, at least in Arena, you can see on the right side of your screen when the match starts which trinket people are spec'd into. So you can see if they're using Gladiator's Medallion, you can see if they use Adaptation or if they use Relentless. And if the opponents see right at the start that you're playing Adaptation, they're gonna take advantage of that and maybe put you in a pretty much useless CC at first just to get it on a cooldown, and then when you don't have anything, you're just gonna get spam CC'd for a minute, and maybe that will cost you the game or force you to ice block just to get rid of the CC you sitting in. But in 2s2 and BGs, I always pick Gladiator's Medallion, and in 3s, for the most part, I pick Relentless, and that's because you're sitting in a lot of CCs usually, and you can, if you play Gladiator's Medallion, you can only trinket one of them, and maybe they cross CC your healer and yourself, and then you have that 20% reduction to getting out of CCs quicker, which I found is really helpful to me. And this second tier, I always go Mind Quickness, no doubt about it. Doesn't matter, like you always get attacked, so this buff you rarely get to have that buff for a long time. Maybe if you global someone in world PvP, sure. Initiation is pretty useless in my opinion, unless you go for the, as I said, the world PvP one shot with just one Arcane Power and Presence of Mind and one Arcane Blast with 4 charges of Arcane. Then you can one shot someone definitely with Initiation, else it's pretty useless. Netherwind Armor is something you pick in 3s3 arenas or in 2s2 if you are playing against double melee setups or a healer melee setup in 2s. So anything with physical damage, you pick Netherwind Armor. And if you're facing a different comp, like let's say a Demon Warlock with a Demon Hunter, then I always had a rough time deciding what talent to pick, but I've usually actually gone with Netherwind Armor, because when I play against that comp, I can usually blink out of line of sight from the Warlock. If a Warlock is channeling his abilities into you and you want to blink, or if you wanted to dodge the ability with your Prismatic Cloak, you can still do that with Netherwind Armor. You just got to position yourself correctly and blink in a different direction from where he's casting it. So you can either blink behind him so it interrupts itself, you can blink further away so he gets out of range from casting it, or you can blink behind a pillar to avoid the damage, for example. Because the Demon Hunter is still gonna sit on you and do damage most of the time if they're focusing you, then you're gonna want that 15% crit reduction. Else, against any casters, you go Prismatic Cloak, especially against Rogue Mage teams, for example. So you can dodge those Ebon Bolts, Flurries, or Greater Pyros, or Pyroblasts, or another Arcane Mage's Burst, for that matter. And for the fourth talent, you most of the time play Temporal Shield, but I'm gonna tell you the reasons to why you would change that. Dampen Magic is something you would use against double dot cleaves, like let's say you can, if you're facing an Unholy DK and Affliction Warlock, I would go Dampen Magic. If I'm facing a Boomkin and Shadow Priest, I would go Dampen Magic. And yeah, against anything that has a double dot comp, I would go Dampen Magic, else I would still sit with Temporal Shield. And the times I pick Kleptomania is something special, actually. It's when you face a Resto Druid most of the time. If you feel like you're struggling with survivability, you might want to stick with Temporal Shield anyway, but you have more pressure and kill potential if you play Kleptomania against a Resto Druid. You can also play against, for example, RMP, where there's a Disc, Mage, and Rogue. You can play Kleptomania to steal all the mages' buffs just right off the bat, and most of the time mages still play with Temporal Shield, and if you have Kleptomania, it means that you can steal all his buffs and his Temporal Shield in one swoop, so you still have a lot of mana to use that else you would sit and spam spell steal until you're if you really want that temp shield, for example, if you're getting low. So those are the situations where I use Kleptomania. And for the fifth talent tree here, or the tier row, I always go Tournament of the Week no matter what. I never play Time Anomaly and never Concentrated Power, because I don't see the point. Like, this makes your arcane power last longer and its bonus increased by 10%, but this gives you permanent 15% if they're slowed. And trust me, your nuke target is mostly slowed. Either you put a slow on them or you play with someone with a slow, so you're gonna do that 15% more damage all the time. And this is just a random RNG based talent that if you're very lucky, you would have it all the time up, but you won't. And for the last tier, I always go Mass Invisibility to help your teammates escape some situations, or if you're opening up on someone, you can make sure you get that Mark of Lunath off without any problems in the opening session of the arena match, for example. And that has been it for the talent sections, guys. So we're gonna move on to artifact traits. Alright, so here we have the artifact weapon for Arcane, and you can see maybe some of you haven't done the quest line to get the new traits that came in 7.2, but I highly recommend doing that. You need to get to artifact knowledge level 25 first, and do the Broken Shore quest line, and then you will get a quest to go to your class hall, and then that quest line will actually end, so you will have to go back to Khadgar on the Broken Shore to get it again to start another quest line. And you will, once you complete that for each spec, you can unlock, like if you want to get the one for Arcane, you need to do the Arcane spec. If you want to get it for Frost, you do it the Frost spec, and so on, no matter what. So I've gone ahead and picked all these talents, or these traits, but the last one, if you're only focused on PvP, I don't see any rush in getting this one. because this is just a risk take to do just a little bit more damage and breaking CC more in an easier way, because you have a larger Arcane explosion because it explodes in two different places from your location and from the one you previously used it on. And I just picked it because I do Mythic Plus dungeons a lot as well, so it helps me with the AoE damage too. But if I was just focused on PvP on this character, I would probably not have picked it right away. And once you're done with all this, if you want to get all these 4 traits, I've gone ahead and picked more arcane missile damage. And once I get the new trait for the next one, I'm gonna go for the chance for the arcane missiles to proc. I'm gonna pick this one, the arcane barrage damage. Then I'm gonna pick the arcane power duration increase. And probably after that, I'll go with the arcane blast, increased damage. And then it doesn't really matter which one you go for. I would probably go for the arcane explosion just for the PvE sense of it when I'm doing Mythic Plus dungeons. And if you want to go more defensive, you can also go for Force Barrier really quick to increase your absorption shield from Prismatic Barrier. And then you just go wherever you want pretty much. You can also go here after that, because this is pretty good as well to increase the duration of your displacement. Like when you blink, you get the displacement beacon. So when I use this displacement, I will get back to this location here. So if I jump down here and I use displacement, I will get back up here again, for example. It can be really helpful when you are kiting on Blade's Edge Arena, for example, when you're jumping down and your healer is upstairs being CC'd and the melees jump down after you and you just teleport back up again, for example. But it's not really much more to it than that for the arcane traits. And so I'm gonna move on with the setups you can play in 3v3 arenas. Okay, my recording device, or not my recording device, my Battle.net crashed for an update and I can't restart it, so I'm just gonna do it right here about the matchup settings. And we're gonna be looking at two setups for Arcane, and that's gonna be Disc Arcane, you can play that, Resto Druid Arcane, and those are the only comps that I actually like playing if I'm playing twos with a healer. And if you're playing twos, and if you are like me, you hate playing with healers in twos too, as Arcane, then you can go with a double DPS setup like Arcane Red Paladin, Arcane Frost or Fire Mage, or even an Arcane Mage. Double Arcane can work as well if you play well. You can play Arcane Rogue. Any rogue spec would work, but I would say Sub is probably the best rogue spec to play with if you're going to play with a rogue. And you can play Arcane Boomkin, for example. And those are the combos that I would play in twos if I had to. And for 3v3 setups, you can go Disc or Resto Druid with your Arcane and a Warrior. You can go Resto Druid, Arcane, and Windwalker. And you can play Rogue Mage Druid or Rogue Mage Disc Priest. You can play Boomkin Arcane, Resto Druid, or Disc Priest. Or you can actually play Destro Warlock, Arcane Mage, Resto Druid. And there are probably much more combos out there that are very good for an Arcane Mage, but these are the combos I've tried or seen that I've thought is good. For example, I've not played Destro Arcane myself, nor have I played Boomkin Arcane, but I feel like they are really strong if they're played well. And the Rogue Mage Druid or Disc Priest comp, like RMP or RMD, I myself am not really fond of that combo on my mage, but it does work well if you play it well, of course. I think Rogue Mage setups in general in Legion are way more complicated now than it was before, but that's just my opinion as well. But that is pretty much it for setups, so let's move on to the burst section. Okay guys, I'm gonna teach you how to do your burst rotation. This is mainly for arena, keep that in mind, mostly in 3v3 as well when you're doing setups with your partner, but then you will be playing with this spec, well, mostly Ring of Frosts, but you get the idea. And what you're gonna do is, mostly if you're going straight away in the opener, then you're gonna mass invis. I can't do it now since I'm not in PvP, but then I would be in invis, and you Arcane, or sorry, let's start over. I don't goof. Let's see. So you go Mark of Voluneth. I'll explain it first, then I'll show you. So you go Mark of Voluneth, Arcane Orb, Arcane Power, Presence of Mind at the same time, and you do double Arcane Blast, and then into an Arcane Barrage. So it would look something like this: Mark of Voluneth, Arcane Orb, Presence of Mind, Arcane Power, double Arcane Blast, and then if you have the time, when you have missile blocks, you can use the missiles as well, and Arcane Barrage. But if you don't get those Arcane Missiles procs, which can happen, then you just Arcane Barrage right off the bat. But you always want to try to use your Arcane Missiles when you have Arcane Power, because Arcane Power just boosts the Arcane Missiles damage by such a huge amount. And let's say, for instance, if you're nuking a target that is isolated, so you would only hit one target with your Arcane Orb, like that, so you only get 2 stacks. If you have the time, you can do 2 quick Arcane Explosions, so you actually have 4 stacks of Arcane Charges before you use your Presence of Mind. But if you're really confident that you will do a lot of damage anyway, it doesn't matter if you're on 2 stacks or 4, depending on how much damage your partner has. Like if you're playing with a Fury Warrior, for example, like it doesn't matter if you have 2 charges of 4, because the Warrior will do the damage you would anyway to make the target die. Like you would one-shot him anyway. It doesn't. But as I said, it depends on your rating and what team you're facing. Like you might be cycloned, you might be feared, stunned, anything during this burst. So you always have to be positioned well and prepared for that. And if there's another mage that is not CC'd, you might even have to fake cast. If you can't mass invis, you might have to fake cast your Mark of Voluneth, like interrupted midway through, or like very short into it. It's always hard to juke someone's first silence, in my opinion, in arena, because you don't know what they're thinking. Some people just use their interrupt spell as soon as they see you cast, so you like get interrupted straight away. There's even people still cheating. I've noticed that sometimes, not a lot, but I've still noticed that when they're playing with Kickbot, like they pretty much interrupt. There, I'm interrupted. Like I don't even see my cast bar before it's interrupted. But you usually have to fight them for a couple of minutes or a few times before you learn when they're gonna see counter spell you or silence you, kick you, anything like that. But I'm going to show you real quick. If you have chosen to play with the charged up talent and you still play with Incantus Flow, then you would still pretty much do the same thing as you did the first time. You're still gonna Mark of Voluneth right off the bat. You're gonna Mark of Voluneth, you're gonna charged up, Arcane Power, Presence of Mind, double Arcane Blast, and then you got the missile proc. You use missiles and Arcane Barrage, and you can use the orb after that to get your stacks back and do Arcane Explosions until you get the stacks up again, and you do your Arcane Missiles if you get any procs, that is, and you will do a lot of damage. I can guarantee that. But most of the time, if you're gonna solo kill someone, if you're chasing someone down, you're pretty much gonna need Arcane Power with Arcane Missiles to get that kill. Because you still, don't get me wrong, like Arcane does insane amounts of damage with just Mark of Voluneth and double Arcane Blast and a Barrage, but most of the times that's not gonna kill someone from 100 to 0 if they don't have more people stacked with them and you play Resonance, so that your Arcane Barrage actually hits for like 700k to a million. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed it. Leave a dislike and a comment if you didn't. And if you really want to support my channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button and click the bell notation next to the subscribe button to get the notifications when I'm uploading a video. And I do try to upload 1 video a week at least at the moment. And this has been Gregarious, guys. Gregarious is out.